for anyone in the room who doesn't know me, I'm Rob Warburton. I'm the Trust Decontamination Lead for Manchester University Foundation Trust. I'm the Director of Communication for the Institute of Decontamination Sciences, and I have the pleasure of also being the Chairman of the Midlands branch for that same institute. I've got to mention this at the start, that any of the views and interpretations expressed by me today are not an official stance of the Institute or of Manchester Trust. They are my views, and anything controversial that comes out of my mouth, I am the only one responsible, not these organisations. Okay, that's that said. So we're going to talk about, again, what we've just been touched on, automation and sterile services, what can be automated. So I'm going to look at a specific area with this. And before we look at where we're going, it's worth pausing to remember where we've already been. So across every industry, the same pattern repeats itself. And a technology arrives, completely transforms the way we work, and then quietly disappears when advances and new technology come along which are smarter, faster, or safer, and that takes its place. Yeah, and I think we can all think of scenarios where we've seen that happen. We're going to look at a couple of them. At each time, these technologies, they were so embedded in daily life, they're so embedded in what we do, we felt like they were irreplaceable. Yeah, and that's some of the things we've just been talking about just now. And you think that it's almost impossible to imagine working without them. But over the years, it's happened. Like I say, we've got that laser, doesn't work on a TV screen. Brilliant. Okay, so we had the Industrial Revolution. You know, we're working with steam and massive factories, very, very dangerous. Then we sort of progressed with the likes of Henry Ford to the mass production conveyor belt line, and we had the more electrical input into the manufacturing. Then we started seeing robots coming in. Okay, they might have been operator-led robots, but we started seeing them introduced to the manufacturing lines, replacing people's hands and backs with doing the hard work. More recently, we see those robots becoming automated, and then as we are now, we're entering into the age where not only are they automated, we're having that artificial intelligence as well. So these robots are starting to think for themselves. It truly is like the 1980s Terminator, Skynet is coming. So, like I said, we thought it was completely impossible to imagine working with any new advances from the revolutionary technologies that we have. But, as Alexander the Great said, there is nothing impossible to him who will try. So, we can adopt new technologies, and these might change the way we work and the way we think about how we do things. So, history shows us that even the most revolutionary ideas don't last forever. In fact, the context matters because it shows us that today's shift isn't unusual, it's inevitable. So let's take a bit of a walk through history and look at some things that were so immersed in what we did that we thought, this is the pinnacle, we're not going to do anything different. Okay, and we'll look at some different examples now. I'm sure there's people old enough to remember these. So we had the DVD, 1997. Netflix begins a DV by mail service. Anyone remember the DV by mail service, getting your films in the post? It was great, wasn't it? Yeah. So that dominated the market through the 90s and to the 2000s. Then what happened? 2007 launches a streaming platform. Okay? And that's it. Your film started looking like that rather than a little envelope with a DVD inside. By 2010, rapid production adopted of streaming platforms, DVDs declined steeply, and the streaming platform becomes dominant. And by the 2020s, the streaming is the mainstream platform for accessing films. So what do we have? The death of DVDs. Gone. Nobody bothers with them anymore. BlackBerry, going back, anyone remember these? Do you know, I loved my BlackBerry. It was fantastic. So yeah, look at it. All those buttons on that nice fat little phone. Oh, it was a brilliant bit of kit, wasn't it? Yeah. So 2002, BlackBerry smartphones released the first smartphone. It had email on there. It had BlackBerry Messenger, free messages. It was brilliant. What a revolution of technology. It wasn't surely not going anywhere. And Steve Jobs' lot came along, didn't they? With the bloody touchscreen and no buttons. What's that all about? 2007, Apple introduced the first iPhone. Touchscreens. Still like, everyone liked the buttons. And BlackBerry was so obsessed with this. They're like, nah, touchscreens will never take off. People like buttons. You've got to have the button on there. We want that click. They were wrong. iPhone, Android by 2013 had surpassed BlackBerry in the market share. 2016, BlackBerry stopped production. So what happened? Death of BlackBerry. Rest in peace, gone. Let's go a little bit more healthcare orientated. The iron lung. Great bit of kit. Revolutionary at its time. 1927, Philip Dinkler and Louis Shaw. By the 1950s, though, we'd seen the introduction of modern ventilators. 1953, the iron lung starts rapidly declining, and people are starting to take up more of the modern ventilators into use. Death of the iron lung. We see these now in hospitals. We see very few of these. What about decontamination? That's going to be a blast from the past. Does anybody remember having one of these in your department? Crank, you must. You did, definitely. When you were 16, you had one of them in your department. I know you did. Dry heat ovens in sterile services. Yeah? So 1881, Robert Koch. That's when that technology was developed. It was the pinnacle of sterilisation. Surely this is the way forward. Early 20th century, hospitals already started adopting steam sterilisation. We all recognise them. Even the newbies in the room will recognise what that is. So, what happened? By the mid-20th century, steam sterilisation becomes essential. Dry heat ovens largely replaced in sterile services. In fact, I'd say they're probably completely replaced in sterile services. Now I don't think anywhere's got one. So, death of sinks. The death of bloody sterilisers. I've got on to my next slide, haven't I? Yeah, end of dry heat ovens. So what about sinks? Can you guess? Is this what we're seeing? Is it time to retire the sink into the ground and replace for Mr. Robotnik here? Well, let's have a look at some of the risks. So there's obvious infection control risks. IPC will back me up on this. Splashing aerosols of contaminated water, persistent sources of biofilms within the drains, and Donsky in 2023 surmised that healthcare facilities, floors, sinks, drains, wastewater drainage are universally contaminated with potentially pathogens, and it is absolutely reasonable to assume that these pathogens are going to be dispersed in the air and around the hospital environment from the sink drains. If you go over to next door in the IPC world, there'll be a lot of talk about the risks of drains on sinks, and there's a lot of work going on in IPC at the moment of how we reduce that and put up barriers and reduce the drains that we have in hospitals. I saw something last week where one hospital's gone completely water-free for a lot of sinks and things like that. So, infection control risk. Yeah, that's a problem with sinks. Manual handling. Again, huge issue. Sharps injuries, having to scrub all those sharp instruments underwater. Back pain, even if you've got the height adjustable sinks. I get it when I'm doing my dishes at home. If I stand there for too long doing my dish, my back's kind of like, Christ almighty. Yeah, see someone in the middle's nodding, you feel my pain. Yeah, repetitive strain, I'm talking about for endoscopy now, if they're there constantly flushing through with syringes. There's a lot of people that go for repetitive strain or carpal tunnel injuries because of that. So, musculoskeletal injury rates in sterile services, 20 per 1,000 per year, which is much higher than the general healthcare average. So sterile services staff or decontamination staff go off with more musculoskeletal injuries than any other healthcare worker because of the work that we do. So, sinks task creates ergonomic risk factors proven to cause musculoskeletal disorders, including repetitive motion, bending, reaching, heavy lifting, and prolonged awkward postures. All of this from sinks. It's not new information. We know about it. We see it every day. This is why the likes of Rakesh, if he's in, this is why Rakesh sells automatic sinks that go up and down. It's why we buy them. It's why we buy anti-fatigue matting, to try and do everything we can to protect the staff and keep them working at those sinks. Why do we keep making them work at the sinks, though? So, generally, injuries to back, shoulders, neck, wrists and hands. And as we touched on, and we said in the last section, we see these robots. We've got them, they're there now, they're in sterile services. There's one actually in practice. There's robots that can transport the kit around the room, take it off conveyor belts and move it to a station where we want. We've got, like Brian said, we've got wrapping robots. These are getting better. The first one was very, very slow, and there's no way one of them was going to beat a technician. And not my technicians who can wrap a tray in 45 seconds anyway. That wasn't going to be beat like this. But these are getting better, they're getting faster, they're getting slicker. The technology is advancing. So we've got robots that can do the wrapping of the trays. Again, the loading and unloading of wash carriages. A lot of washer manufacturers, there's guys at the back from LTE that'll probably be able to attest to this. They would provide loading and unloading robots to set up for your washing machines and maybe your sterilisers as well. We've already got automatic unloaders on those kits, but this is taking it one stage further. So, we have automated pre-clean devices. These are the things that are coming in. This one is a device that can pre-clean a tray of instruments in 2 minutes, using nothing more than cold water at high pressure. We have semi-automated. So this device uses bicarb and is human operated, but provides a more robust cleaning than at a sink in a much shorter amount of time. And then we have the additions for endoscopy as well. So connecting endoscopes up to this, replacing the sinks with these devices that will completely flush through the scope and have the physical activity on the outside of the scope to replicate brushing on the outside as well. So this technology is there now. Half of these are probably in that room next door. Okay? This is not way into the future. This is now. This is real. Why aren't we talking about it? So the potential benefits. You're going to hang me for this one, aren't you? Potentially cost saving, but reduction in chemicals. So apologies to all the chemical companies that are going to hang me out to dry for saying that. Technician time. Now this is, I keep pressing the laser, but it's not working. This is the one where concerns me the most, because then I can redistribute those technicians to doing something more important than being stuck at a sink. I can put that skill where it's needed. Rewash reduction. I know he's left now, but my colleague was here from Broad Green Hospital in Liverpool. After introducing a pre-clean system, he saw an 80% reduction in pack to wash rejections. That's significant. That saves so much of your processing time. How many more trays can you produce for your theatres? How many more fast tracks can you push through with an 80% reduction in rejections? So that's a significant figure. Process time. Because of the reduction in rewashes, you're processing more efficiently. And the big one which always makes the AEDs happy, these systems, unlike any manual subjective process, they can be validated, which means they are completely repeatable. The exact same process, the exact same effectiveness, time and time again. And that's what we need to remove the subjectivity and enhance the quality of the services that we offer. So, conclusion. Eliminating manual sink-based pre-cleaning and adopting automated pre-cleaning systems will reduce musculoskeletal injuries, remove major infection control risks from the sinks, standardise and validate pre-cleaning with high repeatability, shorten and streamline processing times, and improve staff ergonomics, well-being and potentially retention because they're not getting battered at work. Overall, automated pre-cleaning offers superior safety, efficiency, compliance compared with manual sink-based cleaning. So I'll come back to the conclusion. A nice grainy picture of a beautiful sink, but do we all think that's now the time, the death of sinks?